When I speak about adolescent health, I like to highlight three areas. These three areas we also find in the Regional Adolescent Health Strategy that was adopted by the PAHO member states in 2009. The first area is mortality. We know that the majority of deaths among adolescents are preventable. The three main causes of death among adolescents in our region are homicide, violence, suicide, self-inflicted violence, and the third one is traffic injuries. We have recently done an analysis of trends in these three mortality causes in the age groups adolescents and youth. And maybe to clarify, when we speak about adolescents, we speak about the age group 10 to 19. And when we speak about youth, it's the age group 15 to 24. And when we look at the trends, really the situation is not very good. We have not made any progress in the reduction of adolescent mortality in our region. In truth, it has increased a little bit when we compare with 2008 and the period before that. When we look at specific mortality causes such as homicide, we see that our young men die from homicides 4 times as much as girls, and this has not reduced. Suicides, we also have more suicides being conducted by males, but we see that an increasing trend among the young women or the adolescent girls. And traffic injuries, very similar. We see more boys, more young men dying from traffic injuries, but in some countries we also see an increasing trend among females as they increase their participation in traffic, in driving cars, etc. So in general, when it comes to homicides, when it comes to mortality, we are not doing well. We should do better in our region. The second area is sexual reproductive health. And one of the most important indicators of sexual reproductive health among adolescents is adolescent pregnancy. And once again, unfortunately, we are not doing well. Our region is the second region with the highest adolescent fertility rate compared with other regions in the world. We are only superseded by sub-Saharan Africa. Even though maybe the good news is that we have seen a slight reduction, but it's very slight and it is not equal in the region. For instance, in Central America, we continue to have countries with very high adolescent fertility rates, such as Guatemala, such as Nicaragua. And we need to do better. If we compare our situation with other countries with similar levels of income and development, we are not doing well when it comes to adolescent fertility. The third area is the whole big area of risk factors. Risk factors for non-communicable diseases, the use of substances, the use of alcohol and tobacco and illicit substances, and also nutritional deficiencies. And where we have seen some improvement is in, for instance, physical activity of young people, because lack of physical activity is a risk factor for non-communicable diseases, and we see that there is an increasing trend. More young people are active at least a few days a week. But obesity has not gone down. We see between 20 and 35% of young people who are obese or overweight, which is really a risk factor for non-communicable diseases as young adults or later on in life. And so in general, when we look at these three areas, mortality, sexual reproductive health, and risk factors, we need to do better. We need to improve our investments in young people because we are not making the progress that is needed and the progress that is important for our young people to contribute to the generation of health, of good health across the life course. Not just during adolescence, but later on as adults. We want healthy adults. And to achieve that, we need to invest in adolescents. Well, some of the challenges are related to national programs. We have seen progress in the development of national adolescent health programs. Almost all our countries have a national adolescent health program and have a national adolescent health strategy. The challenge is that many of these programs and these strategies are not well funded. And also lack human resources. And so even though we might have a framework, there is limited capacity to implement. So that is one major challenge that we have, and that we also hear from our national programs, that they need more funding, need more investment. Another challenge is the policy and legal framework, especially when it comes to, for instance, sexual reproductive health. In many countries, we still have legal and policy barriers for young people to access these services, to access comprehensive information, to access commodities such as contraceptives, and that limits the effectiveness of interventions, because our young people do not have the access compared with their adult counterparts. Another problem is the norms within society when they look at adolescents. I think that we still see too much that our communities see adolescents as problems. These are the young people who create problems and not as a potential. Our region, many countries in our region are going through the demographic transition that creates the opportunity for a demographic dividend. And what does this mean? The demographic transition means that we have more than ever before a large group of young people in our population pyramid, how we call it. And this is a potential. If we invest in these young people, we educate them, we protect their health, we promote their participation, they become the richness, the wealth for development of our region and of our countries in the future. Because these are the young people who we depend on to promote our development, our sustainable development. A very important report from the Lancet recently said that when we invest in young people, we have triple benefit. One is we make sure that we have healthy adolescents who do not die prematurely and who do not generate costs associated with medical cost expenses when they encounter violence or traffic. So for themselves, for adolescents. Then we also invest in the future adult, a healthy adult. And then the third one is we invest in the next generation, because adolescents will be the next generation of parents. And we know that health is transmitted intergenerationally. If we have healthy parents, we have a bigger chance to have healthy children. And so we really have to begin to see our young people as potential and not as a problem. And I think we have to still make that transition in our region. So maybe I can start by sketching a little bit what's happening on global level when it comes to the health of adolescents and youth. Never before have we had such an attention and focus on the health and the wellness and the development, for that matter, for adolescents and youth as before. I can mention the Sustainable Development Goals that really include several mentions and referrals to the importance of the health of adolescents as a condition for development. The second one is the Global Strategy for the Health of Women, Children, and Adolescents, also emphasizes the critical importance of adolescents as a key population. It refers to adolescents as the millennium generation, and the SDG generation, which is the Sustainable Development Goal generation, the generation that is going to allow us to make these Sustainable Development Goals reality. And the third one is, of course, the whole level of our regional and health commitments that we as a region have adopted throughout the years that relate to the health and wellness of adolescents. And what I am seeing is that our member states are responding to this global call to protect and to promote the health and wellness of adolescents. For instance, what I am seeing is our member states are asking us, what can we do? What can we do to, for instance, reduce adolescent homicide? What can we do to improve the mental health of adolescents, to reduce suicides and suicide attempts? What can we do to prevent the deaths of adolescents due to traffic injuries and due to crashes? And so I see that there is also on regional level this increased interest in evidence-based interventions, into incorporating efficient interventions to address the health and wellness of adolescents. There are, however, some issues that continue to hamper this progress that our member states are making. As I mentioned before, we do see that most countries have adolescent health programs, most countries have adolescent health strategies. But then the challenge becomes the investment. We know that we live in a time where economic resources are limited, are reducing, and so countries need to prioritize. And I see that this is a challenge, a struggle for countries to increase the level of investment in programs and services that are aimed to improve the health of young people, the health of our adolescents. And that will continue to be a challenge, and I realize that that's not easy for countries to find those resources. And that's why one of the things we are focusing on is to improve efficiency, because we can do more with what we have. And that means we need to improve the efficiency and the use of evidence-based interventions. The second continuing challenge and struggle I see is related to sexual reproductive health. As I mentioned, we really do have an issue when it comes to sexual reproductive health of our adolescents. And we know which interventions work, we know what can generate results, yet at the same time we see a persisting movement on the level of some societies, some communities, of groups who want to counter and want to limit access of young people to comprehensive sexuality education, to services, to commodities such as contraceptives. In spite of all the evidence, we see this persisting opposition that really is not conducive to promoting comprehensive health and wellness of our young people. And this is not easy, this is not something we will overcome easily, but we have to. We have to, because these are key issues we need to address to achieve the targets we set. Jointly as a region, we set these targets to promote and protect the health of our young people. Not only because our young people deserve it, not only because it is necessary, but because it makes sense.